Happy Sunday!
All right, tell them bye.
Bye! Hope you have a great day. Bye!
Okay, go build. All right, thank you. Go, thank you. Yes, go, thank you. All right. I hope everybody's having a good Sunday afternoon. And this week, we're going to talk about compassionate women. And again, we're going to talk about some women in the Bible that are labeled compassionate, or that we could see compassionate acts from, or things that they have done. And if there is anything in this world, or if there's anything this world needs more today, I would say compassion would be one of them. I see so much hatred between people, and yes, even people in the church. I think we all need to have more compassion for one another. And I will try to explain this and give examples in this Devo today. The word compassion is found 56 times in the ESV. I think that is a large amount of times, so I need to think about its importance. The word compassion in the dictionary means sympathetic, pity, and concern for the sufferings or misfortunes of others. How often do I think of others? What they're going through, what they've gone through, what they may be going through. And if you're like me, I need a little more compassion when it comes to others. So I'm going to open up this devotional with a poem. And as I read it, I want you to think, number one, how true it is. And number two, which person describes you in this poem? It's called Drop a Pebble in the Water. Drop a pebble in the water, just a splash and it's gone. But there's 100 ripples circling on and on and on, spreading from the center, flowing on out to sea, and there is no way of telling where the end is going to be. Drop a pebble in the water, in a minute you will forget, but there's little waves of flowing and there's ripples circling yet. And those little waves of flowing to a great big wave have grown. You've disturbed a mighty river just by dropping in a stone. Drop an unkind word or careless, in a minute it is gone, but there's 100 ripples circling on and on. They keep spreading from the center as they go, and there's no way to stop them once you started the flow. Drop an unkind word or careless, in a minute you forget, but there's little waves of flowing and the ripples circling yet. And perhaps in some sad heart a mighty wave of tears you stirred, and disturbed a life that was happy where you dropped the unkind word. Drop a word of cheer and kindness, just a flash and it is gone. But there is 100 ripples circling on and on and on, bearing hope and joy and comfort on each splashing, dashing wave, till you wouldn't believe the volume of the one kind word you gave. Drop a word of cheer and kindness, in a minute you will forget, but there's gladness still a swelling, and there's joy circling yet. And you've rolled a wave of comfort whose sweet music can be heard over miles and miles of water just by dropping one kind word. As I was reading that poem, I hope you thought about it. Did the first person describe you? And the first person that I am referring to is the unkind word that was dropped and the effects. Did the second person describe you? The one who left a cheerful word and its kindness rippled on and on and on. I hope number two describes you, but I think if we're all honest, we've all been number one for a few times in our life. But we have to be person number two. We cannot be worthy women if we do not have compassion and care about others and think about the things we say and how we treat others. I want to read 1 Kings 17, verses 8 through 16. Then the word of the Lord came to him. We're talking about Elijah. Verse 9. Arise, go to Zarephath, which belongs to Sidon, and dwell there. Behold, I have commanded a widow there to feed you. So he arose and went to Zarephath. And when he came to the gate of the city, behold, a woman was there gathering sticks. And he called to her and said, Bring me a little water in a vessel that I may drink. And as she was going to bring it, he called to her and said, Bring me a morsel of bread in your hand. And she said, As the Lord your God lives, I have nothing baked, only a handful of flour in a jar and a little oil in a jug. And now I'm gathering a couple of sticks that I may go in and prepare it for myself and my son, that we may eat it and die." And Elijah said to her, "Do not fear. Go in and prepare. Go and do as you have said. But first make me a little cake of it and bring it to me. And afterward make something for yourself and your son. For thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, the jar of flour shall not be spent, and the jug of oil shall not be empty, until the day the Lord sends rain upon the earth." And as she went and did as Elijah said, and she and her household ate for many days. The jar of flour was not spent, neither did the jug of oil become empty, according to the word of the Lord that he spoke by Elijah. Now, during this time, there was a drought going on, and people were running very low on food. When Elijah asked this woman for water and for the morsel of bread, he might have well been asking for her very last meal. And it says in here she was a widow. She had a son. So he is asking her to give possibly the last food that she has, which means nothing for her, nothing for her son. And I'm sure she thought about that. And what would we have done? What would we have done if someone comes to our door and asks us for our last cup of sugar or our last egg or our last cup of milk? She had just enough food for her and her son and no visitors. Like I said, what would we have done? Would we have said no? Would we have put our needs in front of others? As we are told in Scripture, the woman did what Elijah asked, and she never did run out of food. This woman had compassion. She could have been bitter, but she wasn't. Let's think for a minute. What would have happened if she told Elijah no? Well, for one, we know God's hand was in this, so we know that the story played out like it was because God had his hand in it. But if she would have told him no, we wouldn't have had the story in the Bible as an example. And number two, think of the blessings that she would have missed out on. She very well could have ran out of food. So it said, I think we'd said verse 16, it said that the jar of flour was not spent and the jug of oil never ran out. So she would have missed out on that blessing. She would have missed out on that stress-free, carefree time of she had enough food for her family during this drought. So as the story continues, we see later on, this woman's son became sick and he died. Elijah prayed to God and the boy was revived. And so I want to read that. And that is in the same chapter, 1 Kings 17, but it's verses 17 through 24. So let's start in verse 17. After the son of the woman, the mistress of the house became ill, and his illness was so severe that there was no breath left in him. And she said to Elijah, "What have you against me, O man of God? You have come to me to bring my sin to remembrance and to cause the death of my son." And he said to her, "Give me your son." And he took him from her arms and carried him up into the upper chamber where he lodged and laid him on his own bed. And he cried out to the Lord, "O Lord my God, have you brought calamity even upon the widow with whom I sojourn by killing her son?" Then he stretched himself upon the child 3 times and cried to the Lord, "O Lord my God, let this child's life come into him again." And the Lord listened to the voice of Elijah, and the life of the child came into him again, and he revived. And Elijah took the child and brought him down from the upper chamber into the house and delivered him to his mother. And Elijah said, "See, your son lives." And the woman said to Elijah, "Now that I know you are a man of God, and that the word of the Lord is in your mouth is truth." So you would think that when she gave Elijah bread and water the first time and never ran, or bread and drink the first time and never ran out of oil and flour, that she would have believed in God. But here in verse 24 is, "Now I know that you are a man of God," because he raised her son. God, through Elijah, raised her son. So this woman's reward for feeding Elijah did not come right away. She didn't run out of food, but when her son died, Elijah wanted to repay her kindness, her compassion towards him. So he prayed to God to raise her son, and he did. How many of us today expect an instant reward when we do something for somebody else? This should not be. If we sow seeds of kindness and compassion, we may have to wait. We may have to wait a day, a month, a year, our whole life. We may have to wait until Judgment Day. But we are, rest assured, our reward will come. It is promised to us. Next, I want to move on to the Shunammite woman in 2 Kings chapter 4. And I want to start with reading verses 8 through 10. One day, Elisha went on to Shunem, where a wealthy woman lived, who urged him to eat some food. So whenever he passed that way, he would turn in there to eat food. And she said to her husband, "Behold now, I know that this is a holy man of God who is continually passing our way. Let us make a small room on the roof with walls and put there for him a bed, a table, a chair, and a lamp, so that whenever he comes to us, he can go in there." That sounds like a lot for somebody who you don't know, right? But she knows Elisha passes by a lot. I would take it that she feeds him, she lets him stay there, he stops and visits. She knew he was a man of God. So how did this woman show compassion? Well, she had her husband make Elisha a room and put all the things in it, a table, a chair, a lamp, and a bed. So I am sure several people during their lifetime have housed travelers. Now, I personally haven't. I've housed family, but I have not housed a traveler. But I know growing up, and some still may do this, when you have a gospel meeting or a missionary comes into town or a guest speaker, someone from the church usually lets them stay in their home to save on hotel expenses, to fellowship with them, to get to know them better, to create a friendship, to show compassion. Now, I don't see this as much today, but how great of an act of compassion that you are willing to open your home to a stranger. Now, I know things have changed, and we must be more careful now about who we let in and all that kind of stuff. But are we willing to open our home? Maybe not for a stay, a week stay, a night stay, whatever length of stay. But what about a visit? You would be surprised at how many people will tell Matt and I, "No, we don't want you to come to our house. No, we don't need you right now. No, it's just, I'm not comfortable having you over." A lot of that may be because it's the preacher's and the preacher's wife. They don't look at us as just a member of the church. And in some instances, you have to be the role of the preacher and the preacher's wife. But we have been told several times in just the period I've been a preacher's wife for 10 years now, we have been told several times in those 10 years, "No, I don't want you. I can come to your house. Let me come to your house and all this, but no." And how many times have we knocked on that door and the door's shut in our face? More times than you would think. And you wouldn't think that being members of the church, but it happens. So we need to be careful of that. What if I knock on your door and I'm really needing something? What if it's an emergency and you say, "No, I don't have time for you"? So we've got and there are some times that it's just very inconvenient and you're not home or you're busy, and that's fine. But if you're a person who never wants to let anybody in, maybe we need to change that a little bit. Maybe we need to be more compassionate. And as I was reading, I read this quote while I was doing this devotional, and I wanted to share it with you. And it says, "To live is not to live for oneself alone. Let us help one another." Have you helped someone recently? Lastly, I want to mention the woman in Luke 21, verses 1 through 4. And I'm going to read that. "Jesus looked up and saw the rich putting their gifts into the offering box. And he saw a poor widow put in 2 small copper coins. And he said, 'Truly I tell you, this poor widow has put in more than all of them. For they all contributed out of their abundance, but she was out of her poverty put in all that she had to live on.'" What would we have done if we were this woman? Would we have given our last dollar to the Lord? Think about that. How hard is that? And I know I've heard stories and I've lived some of this. People saying, we live dollar to dollar. We spent our last dime. What if we truly had 1 dime left in the bank account, in the safe at home, under our mattress, whatever you have? What if we had 1 dime? Would you give it to the Lord? She did. She put her faith in the Lord. There are several others And again, my point of her being compassion is she gave to the church. She gave. What do we do with the money that goes to the church? Well, we help people. Yes, it covers expenses. Yes, it does that, but it goes to help people. And are we like her? Do we give knowing that we're doing good and helping people? Are we showing compassion in that way? There are several others we could list as compassionate, worthy women in the Bible, and we're not going to talk about them, but I'll briefly mention them. Again, we see it in the Proverbs 31 woman, in Siphrah and Puah in Exodus 1, starting in verses 15. These were the midwives that Pharaoh told to kill the sons when they were delivered. So we see where they showed compassion. You'll have to read that story. But we see definite compassion in there for the mothers and the babies. Pharaoh's daughter again, showing compassion of picking Moses up out of the water. And Dorcas again, showing compassion to others of all the things she had made. And those are just to name a few. And I'm sure there are several more in the Bible that I have not touched on, but that are definite good examples for us. So in closing, I'm going to read another poem, and it's titled, How Long Has It Been Since You? So how long has it been since you took time to go see someone who lives alone? Wrote a letter to someone you haven't been in contact with for a long time? Read the Bible to someone too ill to read it to himself? Encouraged someone who is having a hard time living a Christian life? Prayed earnestly for someone who knew was faltering? Tried to talk with someone who you knew was lost? Told a teen that you were proud of his efforts to live a Christian life? Spent more time praying than talking on the phone? Or Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat? Those are the ones I'm familiar with. I don't know. There may be more up-to-date ones. How long has it been since you told your family how much you care about them? How long has it been since you showed compassion? And this poem, I couldn't help but think of a song that we sing in church, and it's not about compassion, but I love the words, and when we sing it, I have to stop and listen. I have to stop and think to myself how true this is. And most of you all probably know where I'm going with this. And the title of the song is How Long Has It Been? How long has it been since you talked with the Lord and told him your heart's hidden secrets? How long since you prayed? How long since you stayed on your knees till the light shone through? How long has it been since your mind felt at ease? How long since your heart knew no burden? How long has it been since you knelt by your bed and prayed to the Lord up in heaven? How long since you knew that he'd answer you and would keep you the long night through? How long has it been since you woke with the dawn and felt that the day's worth the living? Can you call him your friend? How long has it been since you knew that he cared for you? Again, that song, that last sentence, when you think you're all alone, when you think nobody cares about you, God cares about you, and Jesus loves you, and the people in the church should care about each other and have compassion, and not only for each other in the church, but for our neighbors, for our co-workers, for the community workers, for anybody you come in contact with. We cannot expect to be shown compassion if we don't show compassion ourselves. So I want you all to think of ways that you can be more compassionate this week. And I hope you all have a great week, and I'll see you all again next week. Thank you for listening.